Recording is on.
Okay, awesome. Bitcoin Design Guide Jam session number 15 already. So today our topics are discuss milestone number 8 and number 9. We already chatted here for a little bit. So welcome everyone. Alexa, you had just mentioned that you worked on the open design page and shared a Figma link. We can pull that one up real quick.
I have it set up in 3 different pages. Like the first one, it's sort of what it looks like. It says current page. Then I have a page that's called a thought process where I kind of went through each paragraph and added some thoughts and notes and stuff like that. And then the work in progress, I think it's more of a cleaned up version of it, at least what it's looking like right now.
Okay, I'm just orienting myself. So you have the current page. Oh wow, you really took it apart, huh?
That's kind of what I was mentioning, that I started looking into it and try to gather kind of thoughts on it and ideas, but mostly try to keep the main focus of it.
You know, it's very thorough. That's awesome. It's good to see. It's cool to see your thought process like this. Yeah, that seems like something we'll have to go kind of review in detail.
Just for what's kind of like the overarching goal for this project, Alexa? Was this just to review it because it hasn't gotten a lot of review, or was there a specific topic you were hoping to work in here?
Well, it started thinking that it needed to have a small mention about Lightning. And as I went through it and started looking at each paragraph, I realized that there were some thoughts that I kind of wanted in there, or some ways that it could be organized just slightly differently. And the beginning thought process of just adding a little bit of Lightning, which is just barely there, kind of grew into making it a bit, I don't know if more welcoming, but like just adding a little bit of what I was thinking about at the moment. And I don't know, I think putting it all on the page on Figma makes you think on how you can rework it and how you can reorganize it and how you can put some of the things that were separate kind of together, and not, because there's a lot of things that fit into open design and I wasn't sure how to put them all together, but I think it kind of helped to see it all in Figma, and I hope I hope it's an improvement on, or at least adding some thoughts on open design.
Cool. So in terms of giving you feedback on this, if you're ready for it, what would be the most the constructive way to do that? Or is there a specific page that of this one? Like if I were to review this, would you want me looking at the work in progress page mostly?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. Then I think we should create an issue for that one and put the Figma file in there. And maybe you can describe a little bit what you're doing, what feedback you're looking for, and then we'll work through it. I'm excited to dig in there. And I'm excited to see how this way of sharing your work, you know, how I react to it when I interact with it.
Hey, Christoph, sorry, is there already an issue for it? I ask because it looks like it's in a milestone 8 here.
Yeah, there might be one then.
Yeah, I think it's number 484.
Adding Lightning content.
I'll look into it and I'll add the file to it.
Okay. Hey Daniel, we just started talking
sorry,
about
I'm late.
Oh, good. We just started talking about milestone 8, and Alexa shared this work in the Figma file that she's been working on, where she's been gathering her feedback. There's a Google Doc in the chat with notes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing, the top page I had, I went just by order here in that Google Doc, was personal finance. And Stephen, that's something that you started working on, right? But you have a draft PR, so you're kind of in the middle of things.
Yeah, so I think when we initially, yeah, that's exactly right. I think when we were initially talking about this, we were just talking about adding Lightning content to like the personal, or sorry, the day-to-day spending section. And I just started reviewing the page in a little bit more detail. And I kind of feel like there's some other stuff I want to get to on it. I could just briefly discuss that. Or it might
Sure,
take
yeah.
a long time if it's might turn into a huge conversation topic. So here's the page right now, and in my draft PR, I've already, well, as an overview, obviously this page goes through like different types of, like, it makes comparisons between traditional finance and like different types of ways you would interact with traditional finance, and then how you do that on Bitcoin. So initially, we were talking about just updating this section right here, the day-to-day spending, thinking that this would essentially become a mobile Lightning wallet, and you would go around, and the user would go around and pay for things with their Lightning wallet. I'm trying to review this section now on monthly budgeting, because I really feel like this, in a kind of future scenario, is going to be Lightning as well. I think that in the present day, right now, like let's say someone were to try and do this in the present day, it would probably be on chain, like in terms of making monthly transactions. But I'm just thinking ahead to a world where, like, if people are using Bitcoin as their primary currency, to where the point where they're paying for rent, utilities, car payments, groceries, they're paying for all that in Bitcoin, it probably means they're getting paid in Bitcoin. So you now then have all of these companies paying all their employees in Bitcoin, and the employees are turning around and taking that Bitcoin and then buying things with it. That's like a hyper Bitcoinized economy right there. And I just don't see all of this stuff happening on chain. Like I said, it works right now for employees to do like monthly salaries in Bitcoin, because it's, there's enough block space for that. But I think that all of this stuff, if we get to this point, it's going to be over Lightning. And so I'm trying to think about what this looks like in a Lightning scenario. And the two things that jump to my mind are that you either have essentially a home Lightning node, something like an Umbrel, or a Dojo or whatever it is. And these things are getting very easy to use. Obviously, there's that one that you can just have shipped to you. It's pre-built and everything. So one would be a home Lightning node, that you make payments with. Another thing I'm thinking about is, like, there's that Lightning Signer project, and there's just the idea that you could have a smartphone app or a Lightning node, but essentially the keys to the Lightning node are secured by a very secure hardware element, which would be, I think, if I understand correctly, somewhat comparable to using a hardware signing device. So that could be another way that people use Lightning. But I'm just trying to think through in my head what all the implications of this are. But I really feel like the monthly budget needs to be Lightning. And then also, just kind of another little tidbit, I really wanted to kind of talk to everyone about like the Glacier protocol and all of this. As I was just reading through and kind of giving this page another full read through, I'm questioning if the Glacier protocol is something that we should be discussing in the design guide. And I just, well, I personally find Glacier protocol to be very interesting. It's very, very hacker cypherpunk way of approaching multi-sig, that you could just kind of accumulate 6 computers and 6 USB drives and all that. I also just thinking that it's to me is like the exact opposite of a user-friendly solution. And I'm just wondering if, instead of talking about Glacier protocol, we should instead just be talking about like a 3 of 5 multi-sig, or this is already, this is like a 2 of 3. Should we just do like a 3 of 5 multi-sig, because it's like a way simpler solution and way more user-friendly solution than something like Glacier protocol. So those are kind of some of the things I wanted to work through before I opened the PR up for a formal review.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Maybe we don't have to say, like, here's the one specific, especially if we're getting into more scenarios how things could work out.
Yeah.
And also with monthly budgeting, you have utilities could be a fairly low amount. Rent could be a fairly high amount. There's still a very big range. So maybe we could just say, well, here are kind of 3 scenarios of monthly budgeting of how it could be. It could be a desktop wallet with a desktop with a hardware wallet. Maybe you have a desktop with your phone, where you pay with your phone, but you have your other key on your desktop or something. And yeah, then maybe the you're right about the Glacier protocol. Maybe that one kind of just goes at the bottom, like, hey, here, if you're super hardcore, here is a possibility that, for like hackers who store tons of money, this is how, just to kind of showcase how complex this stuff could be.
Yeah, and like you could still link to it just to show that it can get that complex, but maybe just like adjust the image so that like instead of the image itself promoting Glacier protocol, the image is just like, well, this is a multi-sig setup with a lot of keys, And one way of doing that might be to, use 5 hardware devices. And another way of doing that, might be to build your own hacker solution with 6 laptops. And people will choose the solution that they think balances, ease of use, security, whatever their values are.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we might.
Generally, I think. Sorry, just to summarize. Okay, I think we should be, if we're speculating in some of this, we should be okay to say that. Like, here's how we may think, or here's the way it could work out in the near term or in the long term.
That sounds fair.
I haven't really gone into the Glacier protocol stuff. Hey, everybody. But it assumes that there's, from what I've heard, like 5 or 6 devices that the person owns with keys, right, for redundancy. And then maybe those devices are like scattered geographically as well. Is that the idea behind it?
Yes, except that instead of using like hardware devices like, Trezors and Ledgers, you basically buy 6 laptops.
Or old phones or something, or like lockdown.
Oh, you buy actually brand new stuff that never touched the internet from different companies. So it's a really hardcore thing.
Might be a bit off topic for this. Before, I was just going to say that I think we might come up against this situation on many pages, Stephen, that you have now. Like, you're updating it for Lightning. You realize that there's quite a lot of other content we might want to update. And I think we could do it 2 ways, right? I mean, if it seems like a fairly quick fix, I say, yeah, roll it in and do it now. But there is also, the other approach is like, okay, well, this really needs updating, but I'm not going to confuse that with a Lightning update. So I'm going to park it, create a new issue for it, do the Lightning stuff, and move on. That's just a general thing we'll come up against, I think, because there was a while ago since we wrote some of this content, and it's not strange that we now think that some of it might be needing of a refresh. So I just wanted to raise that as a general thing, like, just because you're touching a page doesn't necessarily mean you need to fix everything about it that you think is off.
Yeah, that's fair. The Glacier protocol could be a separate issue.
Yeah, and like getting to my point of my statement after the definition was that perhaps we can draw like some kind of parallels with for something like the Glacier with like hardware, the hardware page and stuff where it talks about like the different hardware that you might need. Sorry, okay, now I lost my train of thought. But we're kind of like trying to get designers to improve the user experience of these different schemes or whatever it is. So I think like keeping it there could be important for like setups which have multiple devices or whatever, and we could even make it a bit more generalized.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Debranded.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Should we move on to the next page, or is there anything else about this one?
I'm good, unless somebody else says something.
Okay, cool. Next one is wallet interoperability. Bosch, you have, I'm looking at the PR here. There are 44 comments, 45 now. I just refreshed. Those are not all open comments, right?
Yeah, a lot of them, majority of them are just like grammatical spelling things and just capitalizing Lightning. So there's a lot of little things like that that kind of came up. But yeah, like the PR is pretty much in good shape. I'll probably open another PR just to fix all the links up because there's quite a few links like across different areas of the guide that I want to change, and I thought it'd be better to just get this pushed through, and then I can just open a secondary PR just to fix that. Pav left some comments.
Is that for additional links, or you're referring to the thing where we're changing the name of the page, and therefore we need kind of 301 redirects?
Yeah. So because it changed the name of the page, got to do all the redirects and stuff like that. So, but yeah, because it's going to change from wallet interoperability to interoperability, just kind of make it a little bit more general. Because there's certain aspects on the interoperability page that aren't just like specific to wallets. Like I added a new section in there called hardware wallets, so which just kind of talks about making hardware wallets interoperable with your wallet application, but that also can apply to any kind of Bitcoin application that uses them. So hence why I changed the name just to interoperability. Just quickly before I get into it, is any like, because I'm sure a lot of you guys have read over this, but is anything like that comes up, any like of the major changes I've made that you guys want to talk about, like any of the new additions, anything like that? Yeah, questions about? Nothing too pressing.
I reviewed this page. It's an excellent page. One of my favorite at this point. I think you really went in depth and even described some problems, which, some problems were really like hard ones. Like you talked about capitalization with QR codes and how people can, make QR codes lightweighter and stuff like that. And I think those were very important things that you mentioned there. It gave a good example of how people can break interoperability. So kudos. I think this one is good to merge. I had just one comment that we maybe should discuss. It's the paragraph regarding I think it's called integrations, which basically says most Bitcoin applications rely on external data sources like currency conversion data. And then you talk how these are with third-party integrations, and whenever possible, it should be easy for users to learn about these dependencies and choose alternatives. But I don't think this is interoperability issues, user being aware that they use a dependency. So, and I know this paragraph was added even before you started this PR. So my recommendation would be to just remove this because dependencies aren't really interoperability, or at least I don't see how that one fits into interoperability. So I would nuke that paragraph. All other stuff looks great.
Yeah, so this was actually something with the Monero desktop wallet that we were discussing about, because they're always we cannot, lock into one specific service or so. It has to be, people have to have a choice, because otherwise, it's not fully decentralized. You're not treating everything equally and whatnot. And so with block explorers, for example, there was the idea of creating just a very simple templated URL thing, where the application would fill in the block number or transaction ID or so into a URL that would be generated to send you to whatever block explorer you wanted to use. So there is some. I think it's a good thing to consider for projects, and also maybe discuss it and try to work towards that. And it is also extra work. So I don't know. I think there is an interoperability element to it, although it's not as strong as some of the other ones like QR codes.
Yeah, I get that point. Users being able to fetch from different price sources and stuff like that. Is that what you mean? Because that still isn't interoperability to me. I think it's a good thing to mention, but it just doesn't how would you design that so that it is interoperable with something that another wallet, and how does that even relate with other stuff? It's not a pressing thing to me. I just didn't understand the interoperability aspect of that particular paragraph. But we can really just merge it in as it is, and then maybe later discuss it if it's something that you wish. We can maybe clarify. It wasn't really just, I really didn't understand it. That's all. I didn't even consider the aspect that you mentioned.
You could also move it all the way to the bottom, and then we can, because it is not as pressing as some of the other ones.
I tell you this real quick. Having heard both sides of this, to me, I think it is an important thing, but I don't know if it is interoperability. I think it actually, we have this whole page of principles. I think it's decentralization and or transparency, because the idea that like, if you lock people into a specific price, API, or if you lock people into a specific block explorer, then you're creating, a centralizing force where it's like, okay, the information has to come from this company. So that would be decentralization. Or transparency, just like you want to let your user know, this is how we're giving you this price data. This is where the block data is coming from. So it seems like it is important, but it's just an example of two other principles, not the interoperability principle.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Pav on this. I think it doesn't really fit into interoperability, but I also agree with Christoph that it is like an important thing to consider. And I think it's something we could probably integrate like in later sections in the guide when we start going into like, what kind of features or settings you want to configure for your Lightning wallet, because that's going to probably be, maybe one day that will probably be a whole section, because there's a whole lot of things to consider there. But I definitely think that should be touched on there. Maybe we can just leave it here for now, and then when we get to that part of the guide, we can remove it from interoperability and then kind of feed it in with some other content later on.
Seems fair.
Okay, I'll take a note on that one. Integrations, keep that as a...
And browsers do it.
Good idea.
Doesn't
Browsers
quite
do this thing
fit.
as well, where you select which search engine you want to use. And I think Google had to do it because of like monopolistic behaviors. So you could like set like DuckDuckGo or Yahoo or something as your search. So yeah, I'm agreeing with Stephen about the decentralization part.
Yeah, I can give you one great example on that. Like recently, we had like Argentinian people coming in and saying that like rates where we actually like companies which we use for BTC Pay server to fetch like rates via the API, they aren't like well aligned with the street rates of prices of Bitcoin in Argentina, and it was like maybe even up to 60% off, which was interesting. So they wanted like an additional option to be able to fetch like more correct prices. So I do agree that it is a very important thing to mention, but we'll figure it out. I'm glad that we discussed this. For now, we can just leave it, and later on maybe, add it in a little bit more and clarify it. So yeah.
Yeah, as long as nobody by default uses that fake block explorer that Chainalysis set up, I think, to track user data. Is that something that they did?
I just finished addressing everyone's comments, so like you guys could probably merge it whenever you guys are ready.
YOLO merge incoming.
So, okay, cool. Okay, next one. If are we good with that one? Interoperability. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
How about Tech Primer? How are we doing, Johns?
Yeah, I just pushed update to fix some merge conflict with the compressed images. Yeah, so I've addressed the majority of comments on this page, I think. There are still a couple open ones about, let me just pull it up. Yeah, me and Stephen were going back and forth, I think, on one. Yeah, something about the proof of work. Yeah, Stephen had some comments about, Stephen and Bosch had comments about the section about how we communicate about proof of work and how much detail, I guess, we go into it and like technical accuracy and stuff. What else? The other one is, yeah, there's some comment on, about the 6 confirmations. I removed that because yeah, I felt that maybe we go into this like in the on the transactions page, so might as well just like like lead someone over there instead. But yeah, I think those are the two like major comments that have not really been dealt with. How are you guys feeling about that page so far?
I can comment again. Yeah, since I've been reviewing it in depth as well. I think it's very big improvement, very well put. It really, I like it's how it flows. Like you start learning the basic concepts and then you go down the page and learn a little bit more, then a little bit more. And then I think by the end of the page, you have like pretty decent understanding of how things work. We can probably improve some things there, but like it's quite solid. And the only thing that was a little bit maybe too much for me were the signatures part, and I think that's what Christoph mentioned as well. There, like it didn't explain signatures deep enough. It just mentioned them, so it like all other paragraphs like really tackled the topic, it explained it, and this one just simply mentioned it. So that was, maybe we can iterate on it a little bit later on. It's not like a blocker, so good work there.
So this is already removed. I put this onto the glossary. Actually, there's like 3 terms that went onto the glossary. It was hashing, signature one, and what was the third one? Hashing, glossary, and block. Yeah, so block, hashing, and signature. They're all now in the glossary, and I moved the images and stuff over there as well.
Fantastic. Sorry, I didn't read the latest version, but I will review it because I do think we should probably merge it. Like there are so many comments on it that I'm sure it's a bit confusing for you to now follow up with all the feedback and what's like still relevant and what's not. So
yeah, like I said, it's those 3 ones. Actually, the one more is about layers. Yeah, so Christoph mentioned
I just turned that as per Bosch's recommendation. I just turned my fake copy suggestion into a real commit suggestion.
Okay. I see it there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll go through this once we're off the call.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it, Johns?
Yeah, I'm feeling quite good about it. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what like other people in the community who are trying to learn about Lightning. Let's see how they feel. I did test it with at least 3 people. It read decently, not the new version. So this is like a while ago. So maybe it's worth like doing one of those sessions when it's merged in to see how people respond and if we need to make any like further updates or do better linking and stuff to it.
Just one suggestion I had, just looking at it over it now, is the what are hot or cold private keys. Like I reckon you could just simplify that and to say what are private keys, then explain the 2 types in the in the copy, and then I think that would also make a little bit more sense before what is a payment channel, because then you learn what a private key is, and then you learn what a payment channel is, and that kind of uses private keys in its kind of construction, and then you can kind of say in the payment channel copy that it uses hotkeys, and you've already mentioned previously like what a hotkey is, so it's pretty easy to kind of like follow through if you're reading from top to bottom.
Yeah. The thing about like the ordering of that content there is that whilst private key is super important and like for people to understand it and whatnot, then we have also like these layers, channels, Lightning, and stuff to also explain. So I wanted to get to to that point as quickly as possible, and then go into like these ancillary things.
You know what I'm just thinking? Some of that content, if we want to have more detail on private keys, that could easily be at the beginning of the private key management section.
So like about like the hot and cold part, or?
Yeah, just generally about private keys. You know, because we did cut a lot of stuff about private keys.
Yes, we did.
From this page, and we have a whole section about private keys. So.
Like how it relates to the address and the control of funds and versus just the management part. Yeah, maybe we could do a little bit of tweak there. Yeah, but I'm feeling quite good of it. Sorry it's taking so long, but I'm feeling quite good to get it merged.
Things take their time. Here you go. Yeah, cool. John's 2 more. User research and user research resources. Did you get around to them?
No, I haven't gotten around to those yet. I'll be working on that this week.
Yeah, but but those can be real quick reviews. If like we talked about earlier, you don't touch anything else. You just kind of see, okay, is there anything Lightning related that needs to go in there or not? Then you know, just ignore everything else.
Yeah, I came across some research papers about Lightning. Security stuff, I don't know if it makes sense to add in there, but like if it's a bit too technical. Yeah, I've been like looking for like relevant research papers and stuff on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
With that, is that the kind of stuff that we want to do? Like add some Lightning UX related research on there, or it's just like updating text that's existing?
It would be great. So I'm just pulling up the user research page. The general user research page is very generic. You know, global audience is a use case, privacy, it's a public ledger. That public ledger part probably we need to update a little bit, because in Lightning there is no private ledger. It's just between people. And then in the user research resources, I don't think there's a urgent rush to add Lightning related research. If we don't have anything right now, just don't worry about it. We'll add it as we come across it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would not spend a ton of time on these, but just do the review and move forward so we can get onto the onboarding and payment section. That would be, you can choose differently. That's just what I would do.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I don't see the user research resources one changing, except if we're adding new research.
Yeah, and we can add new research at any time.
Mm.
Okay, cool. All good?
Yep.
All right, so we went over everything that's left in milestone number 8. Does everybody feel like they know what's going on, what to do? Maybe any problems, any concerns? Anybody excited about it?
Oh, it's really good. It's gone really well.
Okay, good. Excellent. And then I wanted to see if I already created a milestone number 8, because we're kind of like some people doing 8 stuff, and then we can move on to the onboarding section already. I think we have another 20 minutes, and I took a quick look at some of the different pages. It's also in the Google Doc. For the first page, getting to know your users, Bosch, I think you mentioned that should not be an onboarding section, as it's too generic. It's more about the general design process, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Do we have an issue around that?
No, I've opened an issue about it, so you could just assign it to that milestone if you want. I'm happy to take that on, by the way. And I was thinking of just moving into the designing Bitcoin products, as well as just rewording it to be more general, not just about onboarding, and adding some Lightning content if it's relevant. So yeah, if you guys
I would agree with moving it out of onboarding.
Right. Okay, cool. So I'll assign that to you and move it to that milestone. Okay, awesome.
Just a quick question, something we talked about before, is I could add just a small section in this getting to know users about what we mentioned about having a website and the landing page for your app in the App Store. Maybe just a tidbit on that. Actually, never mind. That's completely unrelated. Sorry, I just had a mind blank. Don't worry about that. What I said.
You know, we just talked about in the LB call earlier about it, how because they want to start getting feedback, and so we just talked about a few different things like you know, getting to know your users, because when they actually use it. So you know, after they use it 3 times, make 3 transactions, asking them for feedback. If somebody uninstalls it after not even doing anything, asking for feedback, trying to, you know, set up a Telegram channel, do user research. So I think it's pretty important, and the LB team doesn't have a lot of experience with it. So it is something that would be good for teams to know how to go about it. But it's also not unique to Bitcoin necessarily. So kind of tricky. Okay, next page is creating a new wallet. Any thoughts on this one? I wasn't sure if we even need to change anything there.
The only thing that jumps to mind offhand is just the idea that when you're creating a Lightning wallet, you know, in a sense, what you're also doing is creating a node, and you're creating a Lightning node. And so I don't know if we need to be thinking about anything in there in terms of the fact that the node needs to be on all the time or what. Instead of rambling about this, I'm just going to go to the page and look at it.
Yeah. So
I think we probably should update it because, you know, it's quite a meaty page, and it talks about a fairly important moment, creating a wallet. And I think it just needs to, you know, even just have mentions of Lightning in there so that people reading it get the feeling that, yeah, okay, it's actually, they're serious about this thing, that you should support both on-chain and Lightning. So I think if we don't say anything, it will feel weird. So I think it needs a pass. I haven't looked deeper than that, but it feels like if I read that and didn't see anything about Lightning, I would just go ahead and create an on-chain wallet.
Another idea could also be, sorry, Pap, go ahead.
No, Christoph, I just wanted to say that I can open up issues and assign people so that you can continue moderating the discussion, so that we can later like improve things. I will just do the dirty work.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay, so another idea was that maybe this should not be called creating a new wallet, but maybe it should be just called the first use, because it talks in general about the onboarding carousel, breaking onboarding up, what people feel like during that first experience. And we briefly mentioned it before this call, was that, for example, the point around backing up a recovery phrase or worrying about backup, whether that should be in this initial experience that you're kind of linearly guided through, or whether it should happen after you've actually received funds for the first time. Yeah. And, you know, funding a wallet is also usually nothing that's part of this initial. It's part of onboarding, but it could happen at different points. It could happen differently for different wallets. For Breeze, funding a wallet is more important because it blocks users from interacting with the Lightning economy, while with Phoenix, the whole point of the wallet is sending and receiving. There's nothing else you can do. So it has a different standing. So this page could be called just the first use or the first experience. And then the other pages could be things that, these are things that can happen in this first use that a user should go through. But it's up to you kind of to figure out the right order based on your product.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just breaking it up of like all of these things will need to be addressed at some point, but you know, for the product you're building, you have to choose the correct order that you put them in. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. Don't really have much comments, but it makes sense.
And we can change all of this stuff once we actually dig deeper into it. So do we actually want to assign pages at this point right now? Or how should we split this up, if at all?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
So,
think Bosch,
okay.
you said you wanted to do funding. Is that right?
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. So I can do the getting to know users, funding, and see what's left after everyone else puts their hands up for things. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, backing up recovery phrase probably doesn't need a lot of extra stuff.
I think I don't know. I think the backup is going to need a bit of stuff.
Well, yeah, you need.
Yeah, it might need a rephrasing from just backing up a recovery phrase to just like backing up or something more general.
I was going to volunteer to take the backup related stuff. Like, I feel like there's the page backing up a recovery phrase and then automated cloud backup and manual backup. I feel like that could be kind of tackled as one cohesive unit.
We were also speaking about like duplication. I don't know if like in recent weeks, but sometime like earlier when the onboarding page was released, onboarding section, some duplicates with the private key management section.
Yes.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of content that might be overlapping.
I'd also call that if you're going to keep it the similar structure. I'm not how you're going to go about it, Stephen. If you do want to do it, that is. But I'd just call it like backing up a wallet, because I think we need to add details for one about backing up descriptor-based content, as well as probably need to add stuff about static channel backups and maybe some other forms of backups, like using some kind of LSP type service that Phoenix uses. So having it like backing up a wallet, it covers like all those different kind of backup scenarios.
Yeah, so that sounds like good, and I'd love to take on that topic. And yeah, I agree with you, Johns. That was something I agree with too. Just that we have redundant content, so maybe a good way for me to approach that would be to kind of review the backing up section, all the backing up topics within the onboarding chapter, and evaluate where the content is redundant with the private key management section. And just kind of figure out like what needs to be updated for Lightning, and also just see, can we just take some of this stuff out, like even the redundant stuff? Could we just move a lot of this content into private key management and just keep the chapter focused more on, during the onboarding process, this is how you need to handle the topic of backup with your users, and maybe just focus on it as a user experience interaction and not a technical thing.
Yeah, private key management is it's more descriptive of how it works, and the onboarding section has been the most visual, most UI-based section, where it guides you in a lot of detail through different techniques. Even with the recovery phrase, you can show one word at a time, you can show 6 words at a time. It's just very detailed in that regard, which I think is cool. But something we can decide, but based on where we want to put things.
I remember also Pairings, reading something else, like asking about this section of like which one do we recommend, like how do like one word at a time, or all the 12 words shown out. So I think like adding I don't know if I haven't looked at it recently, but adding some recommendations or stuff to this page.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, just sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll just add to what John's just saying. Like just looking at the manual backup page right now, it's quite big, and it does have all those like tidbits and different options for writing the seed down. I reckon it would be better to just have like one recommended thing that we kind of come to some consensus on that's the best, and then have the other alternative options like elaborated a bit more in private key management and reference to them from the onboarding if they want to go like deep dive a little bit more and see alternatives. But I don't know, it's just how it.
I mean, we can also just pick the one that we think is the best one, and maybe just have at the bottom a small gallery say, here are the ways you can do it, but just kind of keep it short. Yeah, but if we're expecting a lot of changes, maybe it's good if after everybody's done kind of a review of their sections that we then sync again before getting into PRs and writing copies. So we're just kind of first structurally get on the same page about what we want to do. so we don't waste time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Daniel, Johns, anything else? Alexa, anything
So
you'd like to take on?
what pages are left from the onboarding?
Storing a wallet and protecting a wallet.
Actually, I do have one more comment about the backing up stuff. So we're like grouping in this backups, these backup UI things inside of onboarding. Perhaps if we are going to end up kind of like, or at least giving one recommendation that, let the user interact with the application first before they have to go through the backup process. We may want to consider a security section where such things could live, and then reference it from, and then like on the onboarding part, it could be like, well, hint towards backing up, or show the keywords, show the recovery words, and then that kind of like links out to the security section. I know that's adding more, but we might want to consider that if we're going to that route of like not linear backups on onboarding.
Totally, yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry, can we go over it real quick? So funding a wallet, Bosch said you want to do it, right?
Yeah, I'd be keen to do it. Like, I'm already doing the getting to know your users, but like if I was keen to do that as well, if no one else wants to do it.
Okay. And which other ones? Who signed up, or who wants to do anything? I just want to add the names in the Google Docs so we can kind of see. Stephen, you said something, right?
Yeah, I was going to do
backup, right?
Yeah, I was going to do the backing up recovery phrase, automatic cloud backup, manual backup, just kind of treat that as one topic.
Okay, so we have protecting, restoring, and creating. I can do protecting. Some ideas for that one that I think would be cool to do. Unless Daniel, if you want to do it, totally cool.
No, I'm happy to take whatever. I'm looking at the restoring one now, which is fine. The only thought I have is whether this needs to be thought of somehow together with the backing up stuff. But before we get to that conclusion, maybe I'll sign up for this page, and then I'll do a bit more in-depth work. And if it seems like it needs to be coordinated, I will reach out to Stephen.
Awesome.
Cool,
Would you
sounds
also
good.
like to take on creating a new wallet? You don't have to.
You're talking to me?
Yep.
Creating new wallet. Yeah, this one was the one that seemed like it had some thoughts about completely rethinking it, right? And sort of mentioning the other, calling it first use, and linking into the other things as a kind of optional thing. Yeah, sure, why not? I'll think about it a bit more and then come back with my suggestion on that one.
Thank you. I'm also just seeing that the onboarding section landing page has a bit of copy. It's not a lot, but maybe we should just, for completeness, too.
It might just be me, but in general, I feel like this chapter is quite wordy.
Yep, that's Maggie and Connor.
Maybe when you look at these pages, I mean, of course, we should focus here on the Lightning content stuff, but like, if there is any opportunity for further brevity, I'll be in favor of that.
If there's a way to replace a paragraph with just a single screen of a mobile app, that could be amazing.
You know, it's interesting because like Maggie went really in depth with her research and the way she outlined all of this stuff. And I understand it's kind of wordy and long, but on the other hand, I think it's actually kind of nice to have sometimes because it really demonstrates kind of the diversity of solutions and the considerations that you can make, and and all the small decisions that you have to make when coming up with something like that. So yeah, I understand both sides, trimming it, but also sometimes showing.
Yeah, to be clear, I didn't necessarily mean to remove any content, really. It was literally about saying the same thing with fewer words. If it's possible. I mean, might not be, but I think I remember reading some of the paragraphs and then kind of feeling like they use many words.
Definitely add on that first page in the onboarding, could definitely add something about talking how Lightning is relevant for onboarding people to like Bitcoin in large scale, like because on-chain doesn't scale. I don't know if that's the most relevant place to put it, but could add just like a small sentence about it.
So, and another possible thing we could mention at some point is like Breeze, they're a wallet for the Lightning economy. Zebedee is a wallet for gamers. Maybe something about how this experience can look very differently based on whatever your mission is, whatever your goals are, whatever you kind of what benefit you want people to have. Maybe discuss that a little bit, and that could really change how you present things.
I could also put some content around that in getting to know your users. I feel like that could kind of fit in there as well.
Yeah.
Maybe have like a carousel and have the different kind of apps and be like, here's some examples of different types of Lightning wallets, different use cases.
Okay, cool. We're an hour in. We talked about all of those pages here. What would you like to do? What would you like to chat about? Nothing. Go to dinner. Go to bed. Have breakfast.
Well, I think it's another productive call. I like this approach where we tackle one chapter per sprint. We have a few straggler pages this time, but generally I think it's a pretty good approach. I remember back to like May, June when we were discussing like, oh my, this like huge project of adding Lightning to the guide. We have to have a strategy and a plan. I like this. Just do it approach.
I agree.
YOLO.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we need to come back at the end of it and kind of think about, it as a holistic thing. Like, did we get it right? Do we need to tweak it somewhere? But in terms of just moving forward, and I think it's definitely the right way to go about it. And I'm really glad to see so many people chipping in as well. And like, each sprint now we have 4, 5, 6 people, taking a page, and that's great.
I personally love how we're growing as a team as well, and how the wallets reviews, which we're doing, are also helping us think better about how we think about wallets, funding, onboarding. It's interesting to see how we now, realize a little bit more things as we play around with the wallets. So awesome stuff, really.
Cool. Awesome. Then I will stop the recording here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alexa, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say that we have the section landing page left. Maybe I can take a look at that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Now I will turn the recording off.
Just a minor thing that